Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachare. Yamuna Tira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Sutara Satya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanavrinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki BBT Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Sutara Satya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Grantha Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to some of the devotees. All glory to Sri Guru Ranga and Srila Prabhupada. Continued reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. When I speak, I'll pull it over, okay? And it's still summer in Montreal, even though it's winter here. This is like the Nitya Lila. The 6 London-bound devotees. So we ended last time. Prabhupada is teaching the devotees how to do kirtan. The spiritual master has so many facets of knowledge. Just like Krishna has these 64 qualities, or Radharani has so many qualities like that. We read about 25, 64. And Prabhupada knows so many things, it's amazing. And he's teaching them everything musically, because it's an art. It's not just someone has a talent. There's everything involved with tempo, rhythm, melody. So he's giving them all this information. The 6 London-bound devotees had arrived in Montreal only a few days before 2 of the biggest festival days of the year, Janmashtami, the appearance day of Lord Krishna, and Vyas Puja, days approaching, and devotees from other cities, and Vyas Puja days, approaching, and devotees from other cities arriving to be with Prabhupada. The usually quiet Montreal temple began to stir with activity. Cooking became so enthusiastic that it was like a big kirtan in the kitchen. Prabhupada supervised the cooking of the preparations and then returned to his apartment where he personally cooked several dishes. The Janmashtami festival was scheduled to last all day and on through the night until midnight, the time of Lord Krishna's appearance, culminating in a midnight feast. Gopal had mailed invitations to many Indians. Gopal means Gopal Krishna. Maharaj had mailed many invitations to many Indians and had made hundreds of phone calls. As a result, more than 300 guests attended. Prabhupada spoke in the evening before a distracted, talkative audience of Indian families with children. Afterwards, he had Gaurasundar, Mukunda, and Jamuna speak in turn. Pleased by the large gathering of guests and devotees in the bowling alley turned temple, Prabhupada considered the Janmashtami festival the high point of his stay in Montreal. After the midnight feasting, as Prabhupada was leaving the temple, he stopped at the door and turned to Hansarupa, who had done most of the cooking. The sweet balls were very good. Prabhupada said, "Thank you, Prabhupada," Hansarupa said. "But mine," Prabhupada smiled, "were better." The next day, Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, the devotees gathered again, fasting until noon and then feasting. In the morning, Prabhupada offered little speeches in praises of their spiritual master. After most of the disciples had spoken, Prabhupada turned to a new boy and indicated that he should speak. The boy stood and said that although he didn't know much about Krishna consciousness, he was serving Prabhupada each day by rolling chapatis in the kitchen. He said he loved hearing Prabhupada's taped lectures and rolling chapatis, and that he was satisfied and happy and simply wanted to go on eternally rolling chapatis and hearing his spiritual master's tapes. This simple talk caused Prabhupada to smile, and he thanked the boy for his realization. Then Prabhupada spoke, describing the spiritual master as a transcendental broker. The broker acts only on behalf of his firm, and the customer must deal with the firm through the broker. Approaching Krishna through the spiritual master was like that. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 14th Chapter, Text 6, the story of King Venu. Na yastavyang nadatavyang. Na yastavyang nadatavyang. Nahatavyang dvijakvachit. Nahatavyang dvijakvachit. Itinyavaraya dharmang. Itinyavaraya dharmang. Bheri Ghoshena Sarvasa. Bheri Ghoshena Sarvasa. Please chant. Nahotavyang dvijakvachit. Itinyavaraya dharmang. Bheri Ghoshena Sarvasa. Nayastavyam nadatavyam Nahatavyam dijakuchit Itinya varaya dharman Bhari goshena savasa. Ladies, Nayastavyam nadatavyam Nahatavyam dijakuchit and varaya dharma Beriga Shena Sabasaha not Yastavyam. Any sacrifices can be performed. Not Datavyam. Any charity can be given. Not Hotavyam. Any clarified butter can be offered. Dvijaha, twice born, Kvachit, at any time, Iti, thus, Anyavarayat, he stopped, Dharmam, the procedures of religious principles, Bhari, of kettle drums, Goshena, with the sound, Sarvasa, everywhere. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All the twice-born brahmanas were forbidden henceforward to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. Please repeat. All the twice-born brahmanas were forbidden henceforward to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. What was committed by King Vena many years ago is at present being carried out by atheistic governments all over the world. The world situation is so tense that at any moment governments may issue declarations to stop religious rituals. Eventually, the world situation will become so degraded that it will be impossible for pious men to live on the planet. Therefore, sane people should execute Krishna consciousness very seriously so that they can go back home, back to Godhead, without having to further suffer the miserable conditions predominant in this universe. Om Jnana Timandasya Gananjana Slakaya Chakshur Martamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankaite Gurum Yakripattamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Rityan Takstoya Badarani Vidu Noti Saritsatam. So this is a very clear indication of an old saying that says that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when the king has power, he's not just someone individual, has some influence over a limited sphere, but he controls, in this case, a kingdom. And he made short work of making his executive declarations very reinforced. So what did they do? They sent out messengers throughout the countryside. And how did they announce? Through kettle drums. Very interesting process to get the attention of all the citizenry. Go out and make some proclamation. We've seen in some movies sometimes, they'll go do something like that, go from town to town, village to village, but they're not doing kirtan, unfortunately. These drums are there just to promote the interest of some small-minded personality who now thinks he has some power. And as will be seen, Venu Maharaj gets his just rewards. Nobody can tolerate such a situation for very long. But for the citizens, their ultimate refuge is to take shelter in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even under such dire conditions, there's no, although it's clear, Prabhupada says that in the purport, that religious rituals will attempt to stop them by some means. Right? In some areas we see that people cannot preach openly. Certain countries you cannot preach at all. In China, when I was there at one point, they have one little parcel of land, maybe 10 feet wide by 20 feet long. And anybody can go there and say anything. It's right there, Tiananmen Square, in front of the Forbidden Palace, and the backside is the tomb of Mao Zedong. And if you go there, you're completely exposed. You can do kirtan, and the devotees do kirtan, but only those devotees who have previously been identified and no longer have any fear. They've either already been incarcerated or they will be incarcerated. This is the situation. And yet they still go there to chant the holy name. There are other groups also, but how brave it is to go knowing that your government will make any effort to identify you, locate you, and you're kept from any meaningful employment. You cannot get any allocation of the state's benefits, room, schooling, things like that. You're finished, essentially, within the social fabric of that particular culture. But very bravely. So they told me, they said, you should not come here, and you can watch as a tourist but don't come and stand with us. I said, but I've already been seen with you. He said, that's okay. And it's a fact. They already identified us. They identified where we held programs. They would tell the devotees, we know what you're doing. We know where you're holding these information. Such a closed society, so intimidating. But the devotees bravely push forward and continue to do what they can in order to serve Prabhupada's mission. How many people would do that if you knew that you were going to be kicked out of school and you would be removed from your situations? Would you still do it? That's the test. But we don't have that test yet. We experience some liberal religious freedom still. But other countries, gradually it's restricted. Look at Iran. So much pressure. They're basically conquered. Their religion as Persians is Zoroastrian. Does anyone know what Zoroastrian is? They worship the fire god, Agni, essentially. So that's their tradition for thousands of years. But when the revolution in 1979-78 took place, they strictly enforced Islam to the point where they just wiped out, they made sure there was no refuge for these people, essentially. They had to flee the country for the most part. But still, there are devotees. We were very active in Iran, actually. And one of our god brothers, Parivrajacacharya, he was very intimate with the royal family, preaching directly to them, teaching them yoga. So who knows what prompted that. But when the mullahs saw that the king was so liberal that he was even engaged in, allowing his royal family to be influenced by this yoga from India, that's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And the next thing you know, there's revolution. So who knows? But you cannot be afraid to preach. This is that the result is by Krishna's arrangement, whatever it is. So we have no concern in that sense. We tried to do it nicely, like when they were preaching, like we described in Iran. It wasn't that they were trying to create some controversy, but just by preaching, the controversy was there. And then Kali Yuga. So just like it says, the governments will suppress religion. And it's also done just, we're very fortunate that we have Rath Yatra on Fifth Avenue. There's no other such, nobody else has that benefit in New York, officially. Many people do some unofficial protest arrangement or some spontaneous thing like that, but by Prabhupada's grace, by the mercy of Lord Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, we are officially recognized. And they're working on now getting a declaration at the city level that ISKCON is a recognized actual religion. They have so-called so many things that this is Hinduism or this. And there's an effort now to establish ISKCON itself as a separate identity, as a religion recognized by the city. So we'll see how that goes. That would be very interesting. That's not that we're any lumped in with everyone else, but that it's unique. So this is Prabhupada's inspiration. The devotees are taking this up, and there's a very good chance it may even happen before this Rath Yatra, this proclamation. I don't know if we'll have any kettle drums involved, but we have Kirtan on Fifth Avenue. So we'll get as many people as possible to come, like Prabhupada, invite people and recognize that ISKCON has been given this particular classification. So we've come a long way from this Maharaj Venu's cruel atrocities. But these instructions are there for us to always be cautious, in our efforts to expand the preaching, that we should not make any foolish mistakes. It was like Prabhupada is teaching the devotees before they went to London how to sing, how to carry the melody, how to present themselves, because he knew that this would be an amazing event when these devotees go to London. Previously, Prabhupada's God family went, and they had no real effect. They made a few old ladies disciples, nothing really earth-shattering. Certainly it didn't create Hare Krishna comes to London. There was nothing. But by simply Prabhupada's desire to please his spiritual master, just see how significant it was that with his training, that they basically conquered London. So this is, and of course these things create some natural envy. Prabhupada was roundly criticized, as they say, by his family, God family in India. They were, at the same time that this is happening in London, he was trying to acquire land in Mayapur. Nobody would give any assistance whatsoever. And because they saw that this is a threat to their situation. We saw after the departure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his Gaudiya Math devolved into these separate little independent situations. And that's very unfortunate. And they become competitors. And this is not how these things are supposed to work. It happens. It happens even today. People will separate from ISKCON for some reason because they want their own unique identity. This is, and Prabhupada warned us, and he gave us enough information to recognize how these things would happen. And there was a few days ago we read that very famous, and what he said, because nothing is new. So he said this, and I want to get it exactly right because it's that particular saying. With the correct context. And right now I can't see it. Anyway, it's the one where Prabhupada says, the dogs may bark, but the caravan will pass. But the context, here it is. 16th January. You can do all kinds of opposition, but we shall go forward. The caravan will pass. You may bark. So take all these things as Krishna's mercies and engage more enthusiastically. Why should we be defeated? At Calcutta, January 16th, 1977. So even up to that point, he was experiencing so much opposition. Not just also externally at that time. There was different things going on in America. We were fighting for the right to distribute literature in the airports. And Prabhupada always he knew exactly what to do. They were challenging us that we're not a religion. We don't have access to the freedom of religion, First Amendment expression. They were trying to restrict us, basically the propaganda that we're a cult. So, and this was happening in the federal district court at that time because it was Port Authority. It was in New Jersey, because the Port Authority for New York had its headquarters in New Jersey. So that was your jurisdiction. So Prabhupada told us, said, you have to bring all of our books and enter them as evidence. And they must read them to understand. So I was instructed to take all of our books, load them in a car, and I delivered them to the courthouse. And they were like, what is this? I said, this was requested. We have to enter these as evidence. And the guards, they didn't know what to do. You have an underground garage. We drove down, unloading boxes after boxes of Prabhupada's books. And of course, once they had those books, they could not deny our status. We said these books are 5,000 years old. Many of them, not Chaitanya Charitamrita, but Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, like this. And so we won that case. In some circles, they still tried to restrict. But basically, that was a landmark case. It's called a landmark case. That they could not stop us from distributing. They tried to say, just like in China, they said, you can only distribute in this area or this area, like that. We couldn't chase people around the airport. We had to stay in one spot. But that's okay. It is what it is. But Prabhupada knew exactly what to do. That's the point. It says, you bring my books to the court. So we're just simply following Prabhupada's instructions. Whatever he told us to do, we did. And by following those instructions, everything was successful. So this is the formula. It's not speculation. So those who are trying to separate themselves now, still, from ISKCON, they cannot be successful. But it will appear for some time that there's all this situation or that situation. but it is the description, the particular word that Prabhupada used in this regard is called asara. Asara. I can't remember if that's Sanskrit or Bengali, asara. But basically, it refers to a branch on a tree that no longer is getting the nourishment from the root. It dries, it withers up, and it essentially means useless. Useless. So all these so-called situations where people are saying, they're asara. And Prabhupada spoke to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita specifically in relationship to these different situations where people are trying to become separate, individually or collectively. You have individual madness and you have collective madness. What do you call a group of people who are mad? They're all mad. So there's so many, we have to be observant, we have to be thoughtful, we have to understand what Prabhupada is giving us, and we have to understand the context and how to apply it. It's not that because he taught Jamuna and them how to sing and chant that no one else can learn. No, that same evam parampara praptam is still coming to us. And our ability to go forward rests upon the realization that we're situated properly. Tasyeva heto prayateva kovido. There is nothing else. You know, Narada Muni is instructing Vyasadeva that there is nothing to lament, nothing to hanker for. Whatever is there, according to your karma, you will enjoy or suffer accordingly. There's no need to endeavor separately. All right, happiness comes of its own accord. Distress comes of its own accord. A person who knows that, he realizes this is the situation. I should endeavor only for self-realization. Everything else will come automatically. If one is destined to be a rich person, whether he, just like someone says, well, how can a brahmachari become a rich person? But we see many times that as brahmacharis, so many millions of dollars is passing through the hands of these devotees to print Prabhupada's books or to build temples. Right? When Guru Kripa and the Harinam party was collecting in various places, literally millions of dollars is going through their hands. How does that happen? But that's also their good fortune. Prabhupada said you're born in American families, due to your past pious activities, you're getting certain results. You're getting certain benefits. Even if you go to another country, you still have that American body. You still have all the karma, that good karma or bad karma. It's going with you. He uses that analogy that if a hog goes to heaven, he's still looking for stool. So, but there, when we go, you saw that the devotees, they went to London, they took all that youthful, exuberant, good karma, and Prabhupada utilized it like an expert conductor. You know, you see the conductor, he's not playing any instrument. He's just standing in front of the orchestra, hundreds of instruments, and he's just waving the stick. And everything is coming up and down, and it sounds so melodious. But without him, nothing can happen. All those individual instruments, useless. They have to play together. So we have to play under the direction of the spiritual master. Everyone has their talent. Everyone has their desires. You have to dovetail them. Prabhupada so many times said you have to dovetail. And then everything happens, you see. There's no, whatever you were looking for, materially or spiritually, will automatically come without any extra endeavor. And there's so many verses to that regard, Prabhupada. I mean, besides this Tasyeva Heto, he quotes that from the 10th canto, Saeva Dayabhak, Tatenu Kampam Susamikshamano. Just like one in a rich family, whether he wants it or not, he is entitled to the estate of the father. He can say, I don't want it, that's fine. But legally, it's his to enjoy. and up to him how he utilizes it. And we saw that also many times. I remember one of my godbrothers, we were, same thing, we're brahmacharis living in the ashram, nothing, literally, it's, nowadays we have expanded, we have big rooms and we have big almiras, we have so many things. In those days we had a couple of dhotis, a couple of kurtas, very simple. All of your valuables, whatever they were, basically you had in a shoebox. What could it be? What's a valuable? You had, your tape recorder or this or that, the other thing. So this devotee came from a very wealthy family. He never spoke about it, didn't care about it. He joined the temple and just forgot about it. It's in the past. But his family ran a very exclusive preparatory school for all the Ivy League colleges, Yale, Harvard, Brown, all these things. And all these students went through these preparatory schools. And his family ran this school for generations. And at some point, all of a sudden, his grandfather died. He had been cut out of the will previously from his immediate family, parents, when he became a devotee. But his grandfather never changed the will. And when he died, millions of dollars just dropped into his hand. It was like literally living out of a shoebox one day and the next day, multimillionaire. And he immediately gave 50% to the society. Didn't think it's all Krishna's arrangement. Totally detached. So this is exactly what Prabhupada was saying there. Tatenu kampam susamiksamano. And in what Narada is instructing the Vyasadeva. You're destined for this, whatever it is. Even as a brahmachari, it may not be in your bank account, but Krishna is allowing you to use it on his behalf. Guru Kripa collecting millions of dollars. He never put any money in his pocket. But look at the beautiful temples that they helped to build. Vrindavan, Bombay, and Mayapur. The devotees in New York, when we used to collect here on the subway train. I've said this story many times. We're collecting to do two things. We were collecting to buy, at that time it was New Varshana. The Gita Nagari farm before it was Gita Nagari was New Varshana. So we're collecting for that and to buy a temple in Manhattan. These are Prabhupada's instructions, collected. So we're very enthusiastically distributing on the subways. So it's inconceivable how hard these devotees worked. When I look back on it, I think, could that ever be done again nowadays? Would people be able to do that? They were specially empowered, put it that way. You're doing 8-10 hours Sankirtan a day, not 3, 4, 2, 3, no. 8 to 10 hours on the subways. You come back at night and you have to clean your nose, just black soot comes out from being in the subway all day long. It was amazing. And they collected hundreds of thousands of dollars distributing pamphlets, Reservoir Pleasure, selling incense, distributing BTGs. And one day, Prabhupada and my godbrother Toshan Krishna was telling me the story at that time. And Bali Madan was very proud of the fact that so much money was being collected. And Prabhupada communicated that, well, how much have you collected? And Bali Madan very proudly said, Prabhupada, we've collected, X, it was at that time, it was like almost $300,000. A lot of money. And it was like 200. So Prabhupada said, he said, immediately send it to Bombay. Immediately. It's Prabhupada's money. So what the devotees have been collecting for a year or more, Prabhupada just emptied the bank account. He said, send it. The devotees didn't walk around and say, we did all that work for nothing. No. Immediately went out and started collecting again. But Prabhupada didn't do this one time, he did this 2 times. New York was the engine. Besides Guru Kripa, New York was building Vrindavan and Bombay, specifically Bombay, but also Vrindavan and Mayapur. But Mayapur was Bombay Temple. And Bombay Temple, in the spirit of reciprocation, headed up a fundraising effort to collect and donate for our elevator construction. So they donated, they gave $40,000, and I told Bhima, I said, Bhima, we gave you $300,000. You still owe us something. But it's okay. This is all transcendental. We didn't. Because we have faith that Krishna, if Krishna wants it to happen, it will happen. This is the way it works. It's not, when the devotees went to London, it's whatever Krishna wanted to happen. What did they do? They made friends with the Beatles. Who would have thought? In their wildest dreams, to become identified with the most famous rock and roll group practically in history. Prabhupada identified them as demigods. He said in their previous, that was their... Otherwise, how can they be so popular? He said, no, they were demigods. So these things, so we're getting exposed to so many different aspects of the philosophy in motion, how things are working under the direction of the spiritual master, how things are working under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acting on, Radha Govinda directly supervising so many things that happened in New York. Inconceivable. How they were, by their mercy manifestation through Prabhupada's direct empowerment, that we're so fortunate, but that fortune has to be acted upon. It's not that you sit back and say, oh yes, okay, like what's that philosophy, the Python sadhu? You just sit there, yes, everything will come to a certain extent, but, as disciples, we have a higher obligation in one sense. We're not just trying to feed our bellies. We're trying to promote the glory of the Lord Chaitanya's mission. This is, everyone will know, Pritiviti Achi Nagaradi Gram. This is just, and it's happening by the spiritual masters there, that everyone knows, and we're continuing to promote. Like I said, it will come that this Chaitanya Vaishnavism, that this ISKCON, which is very unique, will get this recognition very soon. And this is all again by Prabhupada's mercy. But there's one council member who is very enthusiastic to do this. She's received the Bhagavad Gita. She's seen what ISKCON has done, and she's very much excited to identify with ISKCON as opposed to, being quote unquote Hindu. It's a unique situation. And we have to take some care for our reputation as well. That's, with such exposure, there comes scrutiny. It's not that we don't care. Yes, the dogs are barking, that's one thing, and we push on. But at the same time, we have to expect that people will just look and try to find some fault, and we have to be concerned to that extent that we're acting in a manner that doesn't embarrass Srila Prabhupada or our parampara. We can, even inadvertently, sometimes, because we're dressed like this, whatever we do, someone says, look, I saw that Hare Krishna, he did this, whatever it is. We don't know. So we have to be cautious and concerned. They instantly recognize us. Doesn't even matter, devotees, when they go over to Whole Foods, people recognize, oh, you're a Hare Krishna. So, how did you know? I said, oh, well, you have your Sika, they see the neck beads. They recognize these things. Because we've been around for a while. They see that, they can tell it's a Hare Krishna. walked into the Apple store one time a few years back and just had to get some repair work done. And they randomly assign someone. You go in there, you sign your name, and say, okay, the guy, sit there, they'll call you out. Some kid came out, and he said, hi, my name is Govinda. He said, you're Hare Krishna, right? He said, yeah, my family is this and that, the other thing like that. So I said, do you come to the temple? No, it's like this. They're just busy trying to do whatever they do. But he was a devotee. His family was devotees. But now he's working over in the Apple store. There's so many things. The person, not a devotee, who designed that store, very famous architect, works with glass. He used to come to the restaurant all the time. Very prominent in that circle for his specific designs. So he's always said, in the future, if you need my assistance, let's... So we have an opportunity to do something wonderful next door. Who knows who'll be a part of it? This is down the road, but it will happen. That's the point. When we were collecting nickels and dimes in the subway, we had no idea that Krishna would give us an 11-story building in Midtown Manhattan. We didn't know. But that's what he did. So Krishna knows what has to be done and what will happen. And we just have to do the work. Nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. Just become instrument. We don't have to think, I'm going to do it. We're not the doers. We can think, I'd like to help Krishna in this regard, just like we wanted to help Prabhupada, whatever you want to do. From the smallest menial tasks up to the largest tasks, devotees are engaged in working with Prabhupada. Like I said, some people are handling millions of dollars, and some people are handling the change, collecting on the subway. But everything contributed to the result. So that working together. And it's unfortunate that, like I said, some situations where there appears to be separation. Because what can they do? They can never equal to what Prabhupada has done. It's just a few. So they emphasize certain aspects philosophically, try to minimize Prabhupada's contribution. And that's the height of foolishness. The height of foolishness. But it is what it is. And everyone should be careful. If you don't study Prabhupada's books carefully and you're not listening, then it's very easy to think that maybe I'm missing something and that I have to go someplace else to get it. Bhakti Chumaj, my dear godbrother who passed away, him and my other godbrother, Sarva Bhavana, they were students in Germany together, roommates. And Sarva Bhavana joined first, influenced by, he received books in Germany. There was very strong presence of Krishna consciousness in Germany. And he left college to join Prabhupada's mission. And it was 2 years, almost 2 years later, that Bhakti Chumaj followed suit. He wanted to know. So I got in contact with Sarva Bhavana, and Sarva Bhavana said, yes. Says, I'm here. Everything is here. Whatever we were looking for, philosophically, it's all here. I can tell you now without any doubt. And Prabhupada gave Bhakti Chumaj so much mercy. It's almost like Prahlad Maharaj, that pastime with Lord Nrsingadev. Prabhupada relates that Prahlad Maharaj is a 5-year-old boy. How could he offer the prayers? You read the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. How is it possible? 5-year-old boy. So Prabhupada explained that because he was a devotee of Lord Nrsingadev, or because Lord Nrsingadev touched him on his head, immediately he became elevated, realized, just without having to make any extra endeavor, because that's the whole point of this Sarva Shichaha Mridi Sani Vishnu. Krishna wants in an instant. So Prabhupada gave Bhakti Chumaj so much mercy, simultaneous first and second initiation, practically almost within a few short months, he gave him sannyas. And he realized that this could never have been possible. Not just my situation. I'm just one person in a diaspora, of many Indians living abroad. He says, but he felt it so indebted. And this is the point. This indebtedness is not just some euphemism that we proclaim on a daily basis ritualistically in prayer to the spiritual master. No, this indebtedness is birth after birth. And so once it's awakened and you realize that connection, he said, you should never leave ISKCON. He told all of his disciples, you should never leave ISKCON. Because it is not a mundane situation. And those who have left obviously don't have that realization. They still think it is just some superficial structure for a particular purpose, whatever that purpose they think is. To exploit the youthful energy of a few people. No. So, as much as possible, one has to listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures. Reading is there. One can read. I've seen. We used to have what they called a standing rule. Pancharana told me this when I first started going on the subway. Because we used to sleep maximum 5 to 6 hours a night. Maximum. Rarely it was even 5 hours. And so he told us, he says, you're on the subway, you are not allowed to sit down. It's called the standing rule. Because as soon as the devotee sat down on the subway, he was asleep. Not just asleep, but head drooling, not a very pretty sight. So we have standing rule. You cannot sit down in the subway. And so what happens, we see devotees, they read, they're like this. So you have to stand up to read. And that's okay. But hearing, you can be washing the pots, doing your laundry, mopping the floor. And this transcendental sound vibration is penetrating every single atom in your body. So this is why it's so important to hear. So we say, Shrinvata Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana. Ridyantaksto. Why do you have to purify the heart to hear? Why is it not the brain? Because the heart is the actual receptacle. Sarva Shichaham Riddhi Sanivishto. It says, I am situated in the heart of every living entity, not situated in the brain. And so the heart has to be pure. Krishna will sit. When you hear, you will get that recognition. Everything you're hearing will eventually give you the opportunity to experience the joy of self-realization, not just the dry philosophical speculation. The joy of self-realization, of having that understanding, tushanti cha, ramanti cha, it gives you complete satisfaction. I don't need anything else. But that, you have to work on that. It's carefully guarded, just like if you're cultivating a plant. And that's why they call it the bhakti lata, the bij. It's so, you plant the seed, you nourish it, water it by the chanting of the holy name. You avoid offenses. You avoid mad elephants that could trample the creeper. You have to guard it carefully. Because eventually it will reach the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But it has to be protected. These analogies give us a physical construct that we can see and experience if we're careful in either way or careless. You have to guard that creeper. And so this is not really difficult, but it takes, like I said, you can't turn your back. You can't leave Tulsi out when the temperature drops to 30 degrees. she's finished. And you're finished. You know, a moment's carelessness, right? Probably said razor's edge. I've seen it so many times. You know, oh, I forgot to bring Tulsi in. Oh, that's it. Don't do that. Don't neglect your creeper. You know, so that hearing is the watering process. And there's no excuse now. People say, oh, in the old days you had to have a cassette player, you had to have a cassette. You had to always clean the cassette because it would jam, ruin the tapes. It's all digital now. You just put it on your phone, you put in your headphones, and whatever you need to do, you're listening. Okay, so this has to be emphasized. I still see devotees that are walking around and they could be listening while they work. What is that? The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Whistle while you work. An old fairy tale by Disney. This is just why it's a waste of time. What is the benefit? It's a false premise to imitate happiness. You know, you're just pretending. So we can hear while we work. We don't have to whistle while we work. The other thing about whistling, and whistling can attract ghosts. So in India, you don't whistle. So you have to. Any questions about anything except whistling? I can read the verse again. Text 6, story of King Vena. All the twice-born brahmanas were forbidden henceforward to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. This was also happening in India at the time. When we were there in the early days, they had the CPIM, Communist Party of India / Marxist. Especially in Calcutta, not many other places, but in Calcutta. And we were in Calcutta preaching, trying to build a temple in Mayapur, doing whatever. And we had to confront all these radical youth. They were so brainwashed. It was painful to see. You know, the cream of the Calcutta was the seat of the height of the philosophy of India. They were the heart. You know, they had such the poets, Rabindranath Tagore, you know, and all the great, even the revolutionaries, Subhash Chandra Bose. So they were known to be the heart of the intellectual aspect of India. But they were so polluted. They used to harass us. Wherever they would see devotees, they would purposely stop whatever they were doing and just surround us and just taunt us. Because, you know, what did they think? They thought we were CIA. Imagine that. The Hare Krishnas. They thought we were CIA. So very unfortunate. And Prabhupada saved them. Now, you see how everything has turned. Still in, Bangladesh, repression is, they're burning our temples, killing our devotees. So many things like this. This is still happening. Certain religions are not compatible with actual process of self-realization. We just have to take note and avoid that situation and go on preaching. Those are just the dogs barking. We can ignore them for now. Unless it comes directly at us, then we don't. So, I didn't hear any questions. Ram Roy Prabhu always has a good question for the benefit of all.
There are devotees in two categories that a similar thing happened to them, that their spiritual master in ISKCON had trouble and could not perform the duty of spiritual master, maybe once, some even twice. And that we've seen to be a very good excuse for such devotees to leave ISKCON, join another group, and or start their own thing, where they're not under anyone's authority, not ISKCON, not Gaudiya Math, just whatever in their mind. And then there are the devotees who similar things happen, but they remain within ISKCON, and we've seen that they become very broad-minded, wise, and their faith is very unique because they were, let's say, tested or passed through that ordeal. So could you say something about those who've had arguably genuine bad things happen to them in ISKCON and how to encourage them to stay and to not leave?
Well, I mean, those situations that you're describing, it's not so much what we can say. You know, there's, if one, you know, has been touched by such situations, his internal strength at that point, whether in a developed or undeveloped stage, is the only thing that can actually save him. Externally, there's not much that can be done. This process, just like leaving Tulsi out in the cold. So if I haven't been carefully guarding my own creeper through my endeavor, it's not anyone else's. It's not that you're watering my creeper. You can't chant for me. Sometimes we joke, Prabhu, can you chant my rounds for me? Can anybody do that? No. I can't chant your rounds for you, no. Everyone has to, Prabhupada gave us this very nice analogy on Henry Street. Everyone has to fly his own plane. It's not that if you're in an airplane, you see it so many times, and you're in distress, another plane cannot come to help you. You have to fly your own plane. You have to figure it out. You know, maybe you even have to jump out of the plane if you have a parachute. But you have to have a parachute. So this situation here is that we do have an association, devotees. And if you take shelter of them, then you can avoid this becoming asara, useless. Because their combined strength can assist from, just like, I mean, they have so many analogies, just like a fort. So the devotees form, although circling the wagons. For those of us in America who grew up watching Western, you know, when the enemy attacks, you circle the wagons. And so that analogy still exists in today's vernacular. And so, yeah, so people, they use it pejoratively, that, oh, they're circling the wagons to protect themselves. Well, yes, you can do that to protect yourself. And devotees do it, you know, on a regular basis. If Maya is coming in to attack a devotee, it's our duty to try to save that devotee at that time. But if he willingly goes with the enemy, what can you do? You can maintain a situation. We're not abandoning the temple. It's always here. It's like if you fall into the ocean, you can swim back to the boat if the boat is there. If you know how to swim. And so all these things are meant to essentially develop a person individually. Because if you're depending on someone else for your, like, you know, even to the extent that it's my spiritual master, right? Okay, I have to know in context. which is why we have things like the disciple course, so that people understand how parampara works, how ISKCON is, in one sense, the embodiment, of Prabhupada told us it's not a material movement. And we have seen that. Anyone who has seen it understands that. But if you haven't realized it, then it's very easy to leave. You can just go. It's not. You make a decision based on material understanding as opposed to spiritual realization. It's like I said, there's nothing that could be done. To appeal to someone's sentiment is, in one sense, counterproductive, because if it's based on sentiment, then it can be easily broken again, because it's an emotional, connection. It has to be a strong philosophical connection. I can profess my love for Srila Prabhupada all day long, but that love didn't come because of sentiment. It came because of philosophical understanding and application. Just like, Prabhupada used to give the analogy. You can't say, love that person over there, and he would point. You have to know that person. And so, first thing is to know yourself. Who am I? What is my relationship with God? And what is my duty? So if I know that, then yes, I have an intermediary. And that when Prabhupada left the planet, he very poignantly said, don't be surprised who leaves, be surprised who stays. Right? Because someone could say, well, he's gone, I'm gone, I'm out of here. I was here only for Prabhupada. So what did Prabhupada say? He says, I haven't left you, I've gone into your heart. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kaviye. So, did you not get this knowledge? Did you miss that call? So you have to be working on that premise and that principle, that whatever I have received is eternal. Nimitta dehavikramanasasti pratyabhayana vidyate swapamappa shidhamasya. Little advancement saves one from the greatest fear, which includes so-called situations like this. But, unfortunately, some people haven't developed that, and that it's easy to see, and it's unfortunate, but if they haven't developed it, nothing we can say is going to change that situation. Because over the years we have seen that people, what has happened in Vrindavan, many people, because they don't understand the difference between the Ritviks. They look like us, they walk like us, they talk like us. Everything is the same. Jai Prabhupada. They have big, big temples. Big, big food distribution. Huh? But when people, the phenomena, it's like we never had, very few people, when the Ritvik Society came out, it was there. They were disaffected disciples, and that's how it started. But since it was started, very few people from ISKCON who are well-read, who go to that school of thought. Because they accept the parampara. But many people from that Ritvik Vad come to ISKCON all the time. I say, why did you leave? Because nothing, it's dry. It's not, there's no real philosophical conviction there. They have to, it's like brainwashing. You have to accept this. You have to accept this. When a person realizes that, evam parampara praptam, it's right there. Praptam. You have to be careful. Then they understand, whatever happens, the parampara didn't fade away. And we understand that, who is that person who, there's no one, and that's what the Ritviks say, and, That there's nobody like Prabhupada. Yes, we agree, 100%. But that doesn't mean that there will never be another person like Prabhupada. And to say that is the height of philosophical, what do you call it? Myopia, nearsightedness. Can't say that. But we have to be patient. We have to be patient. And we have to be patient with these devotees. We say, hey, we're here. Anything we could do? We're not going anyplace. That steadfastness and that resolve, in many cases, like I said, people who have gone to other camps, if they can get over their false ego, eventually sometimes they come back. But, once you make a decision like that, the false ego puts a hard stop in there. It says, oh, I can't go back now. I did this, I did that, I just no. But, if you're humble, then Krishna says, there's no loss or diminution. Exactly where you left off, you take up. Krishna says, oh, he came back. But, we don't have the power to influence persons who have made such decisions. In due course of time, they will have opportunity to make more decisions. We pray for them, that Krishna gives them the intelligence. Because that's all we can do. And we should conduct ourselves accordingly so that we're here when they come back. All right? Because they're praying for ISKCON's dissolution, these people, directly or indirectly. Praying for it. They're just waiting to be able to say, I told you so, that ISKCON, it's just useless. It's like this bunch of, whatever, neophytes. Yeah, why not? I pray to remain a neophyte, birth after birth, at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Why should I think that I deserve anything more than that? Okay? And Prabhupada said, I know a shortcut. Just hold on to my dhoti. So anyway, we're over time. I'm sure that the video stream and the audio stream is long done at this point. So we're just talking to the assembled devotees locally, and that's okay. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.
Another one of the arguments is that you say that you have to hear from a living Vaishnava.
Yeah, I always say that.
That's the Gaudiya.
Okay, you're a living Vaishnava.
Yeah. Just listening to Prabhupada's tapes and lectures, that's not enough. You have to be a living Vaishnava.
He reads a deal who tells that Vaishnavas die when our living still inside. Vaishnava dies to live, living is great. I guess they forgot that one, right?
Yes, sir.
I guess so. They should take shelter of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Sharanagati.
Whether glorious is that master who drags the servant by the hair